welcome back. Good evening. I'd like to welcome to the show Adam Sheriff, Ship My Money DFS. How you doing tonight, Adam?
Doing pretty good. Excited to finally talk some basketball.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping maybe over the course of this coming weekend where there is no hoops proper, maybe we'll do another sort of season preview show, guess the over-unders as far as the win totals for the teams and spend some time on that. But for tonight, we have very sexy 8-game slate going on here. I'm excited to get a second opinion on a lot of these things. I think many of the people here have been listening to my takes on many of these players for the better part of the last dozen days, and there's a certain thing in game design as a concept called inbreeding, which is you never want the same people to play test your game as design the game, because if they were going to notice what the hell was wrong with it, they would have fixed it the first time through. So in theory, I'm sure that I have certain predispositions and biases that come out, so I'm happy to have you here to contradict those and correct all my mistakes. So DraftKings tonight appropriately went biggest slate of the preseason, day with no football or anything. We will make the largest tournament larger. They went up to 100 grand, very good. FanDuel today decided to make theirs smaller than yesterday's, which was a 2-game slate. I don't even know. Just figured it was worth yelling that one out there. So we'll go through these games. I'll make any notations about injuries and stuff like that, and then I'll let you have first swing on this, and hopefully we can get that all done in 40 minutes or so and spend a half hour pounding out some questions, looking at salaries, talking about favorite plays, stuff like that. Although certainly when you're going through the games, if you get a hold of this guy's way too cheap on this site and want to throw that knowledge out there, by all means, for the best plays, do so at your leisure. So we'll start looking at Washington at Detroit. Not as much news out of this game as I would like, especially on the Washington side. I still have Thomas Bryant and Markieff Morris as questionable. D12 is still out. Dwight won't play. Still in as questionable. Even hit the beginning of the regular season at this point. But what do you think about this Washington team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously waiting on news, but I'm expecting that we see, healthy minutes out of at least, Wall, Beal. But for me, it's still been hard to really prioritize them just because there are cheaper plays that I think are in really good spots at the guard positions today. So from the Washington side, I don't really have a ton that I love. Like, those are the two guys that I would be the most interested in.
Yeah, I think that's about where I come down. I projected them pretty ambitiously. Now, it's one of the slower games on the slate. I think it's got about 217 over-under, which is, I believe off the top of my head, the third slowest, but certainly not a slow game by any means. There's a 210 and a 212 out there. And I put pretty ambitious projections on them because they close out the preseason on Friday versus Shenzhen, or they play one of the Chinese teams on Friday. Yeah. So this is their last proper game, if you will. And they've been steadily ramping up the minutes, and both Wall and Beal have looked pretty good the last couple of games. So on FanDuel, and I imagine most of the pricing speak you do will be alluding to DraftKings, I'm just guessing.
Yep.
But, on FanDuel, Wall is 10,000. I think you can do that in tournaments. There is a real chance that they're not going to have anyone who's going to be great to guard him straight out. Reggie Jackson gets the start across the ball. You're happy about that if you're playing John Wall. That's a really significant nut to play on FanDuel. But on DraftKings, if I remember yesterday, the pricing on John Wall was much more tolerable. He was like 7,100 last time. He's up to 7,400. I still don't think he's in my ideal cash or my ideal tournament lineup, but I still think he's a strong tournament play. Same thing with Beal. Past that, I think you're getting a little dicey if we start looking at guys like Morris and Porter, and certainly guys who have the chance to get there. And again, I have Otto Porter right now playing 31 minutes as my best guess. Markieff, I'm guessing, doesn't play. They may play Thomas Bryant. That's not incredibly relevant. If they don't, more minutes go to Jason Smith. Jan Mahinmi may get a couple more, but yeah, you could play Kelly Oubre off the bench, who, they've talked about a lot during this preseason. And if Markieff is out, conceivably, they spend more time running small. He picks up a little more usage. If I'm taking somebody off the bench, it's Kelly for me. Anything else you want to add there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I have Kelly projected for around 25 minutes. So that if I were going off the bench, that's what I would do, but I don't really see the need for it. And yeah, I mean, I'm with you with the Wall and Beal projections too. I have them both projected for about 30 minutes, 33, 34 DraftKings points a piece. But with the value at guard, just, running my initial crunches, I'm still ending up with like 5%.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I have Wall, and again, one of the nice reasons to have you here is you are much more familiar than I am, obviously, with Fantasy Cruncher, so you're going to speak a little better to the portion of our audience that is thusly interested. So let's, yeah, I have Wall right now for 31 minutes, 37 fantasy points. Beal for 32 minutes, 34 fantasy points. So we're in the same ballpark with what we expect out of these guys tonight. Let's go ahead and look across the ball at Detroit for a minute as I get back to my notes. So John Lure will make his preseason debut. He's going to play a few minutes. I wouldn't think it'd be significant. Stanley Johnson will be back after a minor toe issue that kept him out of the last game and start alongside Reggie Jackson, Reggie Bullock, Blake Griffin, and Andre Drummond. Did you know, Adam, that all the players in the NBA whose first name is Reggie are on Detroit?
Did not, but it makes sense.
It's Bullock, Jackson, and Hearn. And you have to wonder if a couple years ago they started like, we got to keep them all. Like, I'm really curious if someone else named Reggie debuts, if they're like, there's a famous Monty Python sketch where a new doctor comes into a mobile camp and they introduce him. And he's like, what's your name? John? John? That's Bruce, and my name's Bruce. Nice to meet you. And one of the other guys is like, John, I think that might confuse things a little bit. Do you mind if we call you Bruce? So it's just, that's my opinion of what goes on in the Detroit locker room. So, you know, I think you get a few more minutes out of Reggie Jackson and Blake Griffin. They both debuted to limited minutes last game. I think Reggie had about 16 and Blake had about 21. I tentatively put them both at 24 for this game. They do close out on Friday. This is the fourth of their 5 preseason games. Talk to me about Detroit. Off the top of your head, anyone you're really excited about?
Always interested in Drummond. I mean, he's just a guy that I absolutely love in tournaments because he gives you so much upside. The improved free throw shooting that we saw last year. Now he's shooting more 3-pointers as well. There's actually been some excitement there about him possibly it not being like an occasional occurrence for him, but it actually being a part of his game going forward this season. So never really have to persuade me too much to get to Andre Drummond, but outside of that, there's not really anyone on Detroit that I'm interested in here either. It's just not a game that I'm that excited about.
Yeah, and Drummond, I mean, I will take this as a moment to segue and talk about centers in general. Just looking at, say, the FanDuel list, but, Anthony Davis isn't on this, but he's out. Drummond is by far the most expensive guy, but your other players are Marc Gasol, who I think does get back to getting significant minutes here. They rested him the last game along with Mike Conley. The game previous, they played him and Conley played like 26 and Gasol played 24. So I think you do get 27, 28 minutes of Marc Gasol, but he's still fairly expensive at the price I'm looking at FanDuel. So tournaments, maybe. Vooch has a really tough matchup against the aforementioned Marc Gasol, who's done a really good job of holding him down over the last few years. Plus, I expect him to be very popular after he went off the rails last game. And again, he was someone he was responsible for a lot of winnings last slate. I was all up and down over him against Miami, but this is an incredibly different thing. Nurkic is playing for Portland, and I think he only plays a couple quarters. I think he plays 15, 16 minutes because they're sitting the other starters in preparation for their dress rehearsal later this week. Hassan Whiteside, has an interesting matchup against New Orleans, which is going to be, super tons of pace. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if his minutes came down due to A, the pace of that game, and B, the fact that New Orleans is running out the scrubs and Miami is going to have their dress rehearsal later this week. So I think maybe I haven't projected for 20 minutes. So, of all the centers, I could keep going. There's some with, you're about to hit Miles Turner. There's an upside there. You're about to hit Jonas Valanciunas. There's an upside there. Domantas Sabonis. There's an upside there. But center is unlike several of the recent slates, including last night where there were 4 teams and 9 good centers, which was a really strange state of affairs. Tonight it's a much more open space. So certainly, especially on FanDuel where there's some ridiculously too good value, just throwing a pile of money at Andre Drummond makes sense. He has probably as good a shot as anyone, or maybe better, as being the high-scoring player on the slate. Or high-scoring center on the slate, pardon me. Any interest in Blake Griffin?
Not really for me. I think I have him projected for around 24 minutes. Trying to pull it up. Yeah, I've been projected for 24 minutes, like 26 and a half DraftKings points, and it's just not really getting it done for me where, you have, check the Diallo value, you have all the multi-position guys that are eligible at power forward. He's just not someone that's showing up in my lineups.
All right, let's move on. A lot to cover. Let's talk about Memphis going into Orlando. This is the 4th of 5 games for Memphis. They close out Friday versus the Rockets. To my latest news, although one of the nice things about having you here is I can check things during the show more easily. Kyle Anderson, questionable. I don't expect him to play. Markel Crawford is questionable. Garrett Temple is out. They waived one of their guys. Long story short, Bickerstaff has come out and referred to this game and their finale, which is also on Friday, so they're not on a back-to-back, as dress rehearsals. I have some interest in the players in this game. Now, it's really difficult to peg who is going to play how much and where, especially at their wing positions, which are a bit of a mess, but having Kyle Anderson hopefully out, and I'll attempt to confirm that when I get a second, gives me some interest here. I have Mike Conley at 29 minutes, Marc Gasol and JaMychal Green at 27, and then on down the list for a number of other guys. Do you agree with me that there's some opportunity here against Orlando? I think it's all tournaments right now, but name a guy on Memphis you have some interest in if you can.
Yeah, I mean, Gasol, I have on DraftKings as my highest point per dollar center at 5,900. Yeah. I have him projected for right around 30 minutes, a little over 30 fantasy points. So, yeah, I like Gasol a lot. Conley, I think, is fine. But, again, there's just so much value at the point guard position compared to, you talked about how center is just a really – I don't know if weak's even the right word, but at least like a really risky position on this slate. So Gasol is the one that really jumps out to me there.
Right, and Gasol carries an upside, which we like. It's not like Gasol can't score 44 fantasy points tonight. And Mike Conley hasn't, in his brief preseason time yet, shown us like a good game yet. Like, he's rarely a guy who is getting the steals and threes to put up 45 anyway. And I mean, he looks fine, but I don't know necessarily how healthy he is or if he's just laid back a little bit. And without Kyle Anderson there, they're going to be running next to two shooting guards a lot of the time, where you're going to have Selden and Brooks, or Brooks and Brooks, or any of the number of the other guys they have on the wings there. Garrett Temple being out does, if both Garrett Temple and Kyle Anderson miss, that does open up a lot of wings minutes. So depending on their price by site, I'd have to take a look at it. But I would have some interest in the Marshawn Brooks, Dylan Brooks, Wayne Seldens of the world if they were down towards the minimum somewhere. And then I always think Jaren Jackson Jr., even though he's a rookie, even though he's going to trouble, getting up to the NBA pace, does have, he had a preseason game with like 8 threes and 8 blocks. He can end up doing some dumb stuff. So, yeah,
and I mean, just from what the Grizzlies should be trying to do, if the wings are out and you get those minutes open up, they're still trying to figure out who their starting two guard is. Yeah. So there's, incentive for them to give really as many minutes as they can to guys like Dylan Brooks and Marshawn Brooks.
The Miami starters are out. Well, that was about what we expected. Spolstra says Wade, Dragic, Whiteside, Ellington, Magruder, and Winslow are out tonight. All right. We'll be there in a minute, and we'll get onto that. The starters for the Grizzlies were just posted. Conley, Selden is getting it at the 2. Parsons, JaMychal Green, and Marc Gasol. JaMychal Green, rarely hits that upside. When I expect Marc Gasol to get more minutes, it's harder for me to go there. If I'm playing a guy in this team right now, it's probably Selden. Am I right? He's still sitting at like in the mid-4s on DK. He's 4,700 on DK. Yeah, I don't mind a share of that. On FanDuel, he is sitting in there at 3,600. So if you're punting shooting guard, Wayne Selden's looking pretty good right now. We'll look at some of those other punt options as we move on through the slate. They are playing against Orlando, who's definitely a team I think will be heavily owned. Terrence Ross is still out. Jonathan Isaac seems good and is expected to play, though his minutes will be somewhat limited. The starters got 26 to 32 minutes last game, and Coach Clifford specifically named that Gordon, Vooch, and Fournier would be staying up in their minutes. Didn't necessarily mention Augustine, so there may be a little bit more point guard shenanery going on with, Briscoe, Copain, etc. in the backups there, but I don't think we needed DJ Augustine on this slate with all the good point guards and cheap point guards anyway. Between Gordon and Vooch, I like Gordon a lot here. Vooch obviously dominated last game, but matchup means everything, and Gordon has a much better one. Talk to me about the Orlando Magic.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting spot because we know that they're going to get a lot of minutes. It's always nice when you see guys confirmed getting like 30 minutes here. Not the most appealing matchup as far as pace goes against this Memphis team, I don't think. Vooch is actually showing up in my lineups a little bit more than Gordon just because of the position that he plays. On DraftKings, Ford's just so deep. Like, I have them projected for similar point totals, but I'm ending up with more Vucevic in my lineup than Gordon. But those are the two guys that I'd be most interested in. Fournier, obviously he's capable of going out and having good games, but he's just not a guy that I have a lot of confidence in ever. Yep. He's scoring dependent, and there's no reason to expect him to really be, running point tonight with Augustine and Grant. So it's the two bigs for me that I'm most interested in.
Awesome. Let me retweet the link to the show because I forgot to do that, and people are going insane, although my name was in it, so people should have seen it. But there it is, the show. She is up. There's a link, so we'll hopefully pick up a couple of people. What Grizzlies did they like? I'm not going to go into that. Bryant is available to play. Okay, slightly less interested. Markieff Morris is a game time decision. Wizard starters extended to 30 minutes tonight per Brooks. Okay, we were right on there. High five. We were all over that before it came out. Let me copy this list out of the chat to drop in my notes for when we get to Miami, which will be shortly. And by shortly, I mean in just a minute. Let's talk about Brooklyn at Toronto first. Over under 222 on this game. Toronto favored by 7, which is kind of the largest lead here. Toronto is I have a lot of interest in Kawhi Leonard and Kyle Lowry, and I'm curious what you think about this. This is the third of their 4th preseason games. I'll talk about Brooklyn first here, actually. So their last game went into overtime, which some of the other notes I've seen online have failed to note. So the pile of guys getting 33, 34 minutes won't necessarily repeat, but they're also sitting a number of guys, and some guys are injured. So there's no Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, no Allen Crabbe with his injury, no Shabazz Napier, no Allen Williams, and Ed Davis and Damari Carroll are going to sit tonight because they want to give some minutes extra to Kenneth Faried and take a longer look at Rodions Kurucs, who has actually looked good in his limited time in the preseason thus far, and I don't think picks up any ownership. And again, this game has some pretty significant pace to it. So talk to me about the Nets. Are you interested in Kurucs? Are you interested in what I think is 20, 22 minutes of Kenneth Faried? Are you going back to the LeVert well? Can I talk you into D'Angelo Russell in a tournament? Or do you come down on the Nets of Brooklyn?
Yeah, I've had trouble figuring out what to do with this game because obviously there are appealing plays in it. If you do believe Faried's going to get 20 to 22 minutes, he's always been a fantasy point per minute guy. It's just a matter of him getting the minutes. He's only 4,500 on DraftKings, so I think that would be okay. One thing I did see today that has me a bit concerned is speculation from the Brooklyn beat writers that even though you have Crabbe and Davis and whoever the third one is, Carroll out, that Atkinson is likely to kind of pull back on the starters and spread minutes out more. So if I'm projecting, Russell and LeVert and those guys for like 25 to 27 minutes, yep, it makes it a lot less appealing for me if I think that they can get.
Again, it's important to me to point out that's not much of a pullback. Like,
right,
they played, counting the overtime, and they played the full overtime 33 and 34. So they were going to play 28 and 29. So 25 to 27 doesn't even represent a huge pullback. So I'm with you. I'm a little more reticent of those guys. There's some pace there. I don't have an issue, and they're only dressing 12 or 13 guys. So I like the bench guys a little bit more, but there's more risk with them. Like, I do think Faried gets 20 minutes. They literally said, we're sitting Ed Davis so we can get a better look at Faried. Ed Davis plays 20 minutes. Last 2 games were 20 and 19 or something, so I think he's in there for 20, maybe a couple more minutes. Rodions Kurucs, if he gets anywhere near the role that they're getting out of, Damari Carroll plays 23 to 26 minutes. So, Kurucs at minimum price, where he's a power forward on FanDuel, as is Faried, if you want to play either of them. They're both minimum price. They're both power forwards on FanDuel. But I do think that the whole team is really resigned to being tournament plays. Looking around at Toronto, however, I have a fair amount of interest in where he's priced appropriately. Kawhi Leonard and just about anything. Nurse has been a little coy with this, but it sounds like beat reporters have been saying that the veterans get extended run tonight in Montreal, and tomorrow night they have a back-to-back in New Orleans. So in Canada, much like New Orleans is going to do, which is why I'm not really on any of their starters, they're going to play a ton of their guys at home tonight, and on the road tomorrow they're going to run the kids out some more, maybe entirely. So I kind of like Kyle Lowry. I kind of like Kawhi Leonard. I need to recheck their prices, but what do you think about Toronto?
Yeah, those are the two that I'm most interested in too. I have Kawhi. If Kawhi gets 28 minutes, I think he scores around 35 DraftKings points tonight, which obviously is nice for a $7,100 price tag over there. He's also shooting guard eligible, which there is value at that position, but it makes it easier to get him in the lineup since you can get him in.
What was your projection?
For Kawhi?
28 and
35.
I have 27 and 35.9, so slightly more ambitious in the matchup with the Nets. But yeah, I am a big fan. And again, the FanDuel price the DK price much more tolerable. The FanDuel price is quite a bit more. He is 9.3, I believe, so that's a bit of a sticker.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think that the multi-position eligibility on DraftKings just makes it really, really easy since you get the guard and the forward spots for him. A little bit tougher to get to Kyle Lowry just because of the position, but again, 6,500 there in a nice matchup with Brooklyn. If he's going to play anywhere close to 30 minutes, then it's obviously a good play.
Yeah, I kind of like stacking those guys in DraftKings. That's a lineup I think at some point I would build, and then picking a net to run it back with and hope to get lucky, something like that. Anyone else on Toronto you want to mention? I think Jonas Valanciunas off the bench is someone we should mention. Has a good rapport with Nurse. The matchup, obviously, at center versus Brooklyn is pristine. Other than Valanciunas, what do you think about Valanciunas? And is there anyone else on the bench you're interested in targeting?
Yeah, he was going to be the one that I threw out there. I mean, we don't know what to expect out of him necessarily, but there's no question that he doesn't need a ton of minutes to hit, monster upside, especially in this matchup.
Oh, my volume is super low compared to Adam's. I'm making it difficult. Okay, I'm going to bring my microphone closer to me. I've had that criticism before. For some reason, I come out very faintly on a couple people. So I've come closer to my microphone. Thank you for the feedback. All right, let's move on to the next game for the moment. Keep our pace up. New Orleans at Miami. Okay, here we go. Front end of a back-to-back for New Orleans. They are in Miami. Tomorrow night they play in New Orleans, which is their only home game of the preseason. Jahlil Okafor is still out. Brow, Etuan, and Drew are resting. They have confirmed that they are starting Mirotic, Randall, Solomon Hill, Ian Clark, and Elfrid Payton. I currently have Mirotic, Randall, and Elfrid Payton projected for 16 minutes. I think they start them just so they can absorb some minutes because they don't have the deepest roster there for the moment. They don't just want to start with their second line, but the entire reasoning behind them doing what they're doing and resting the other guys is so that they can kind of have a regular season dress rehearsal tomorrow at home in front of the fans. So tomorrow I think they want to play Julius Randle 32 minutes and Elfrid Payton 32 minutes and Nikola Mirotic 28 minutes. So how many minutes can they really throw at them tonight? So because of my three things: A, that concern; B, the fact that I expect them to be somewhat popular because people, very similarly to Tobias Harris yesterday, not really looking through why things are happening and studying the history of it, will play them. They'll be like, holy shit, with no Brow, Julius Randle is going to go off, which is accurate if you look at it simply and ignore the fact that his minutes might get, halved. And the fact that it's a very deep slate where there are other options to look at. I would have little or no exposure to those guys on the Pellies. What do you think about those three guys before we go deeper?
Yeah, and I guess kind of just even adding on to what you had said, there were reports from one of the Pelicans beat writers that they're using this game to kind of hash out some of their, final roster decisions as far as who the backup point guard is going to be, who the backup wings are going to be. And so that points even more to, those guys not getting extended run. The one thing that I'd read today that had me still kind of interested in Mirotic and Randall was that Alvin Gentry has talked about wanting to get those two on the floor alongside each other and possibly in the future run lineups with those two plus Anthony Davis, and that he hadn't really had a chance to do so. But that's something that he can take care of in the first half. Like if he wants to, he can play them, 16 minutes together and get to see what he wants to see. So, yeah, I mean, I think that they'll both be very productive when they're on the floor, but I think that they're expensive enough and high enough owned that I'd rather just go other directions.
All right, so I'm interested in four other guys on this team, however. I don't know, is there anyone you are interested who isn't named Cheick Diallo, Darius Miller, Frank Jackson, or Ian Clark? I have interest in those four players. Is there anyone else on the Pellies you're interested in? Of those four, which one do you immediately disagree with me on? I have a feeling it's Darius Miller.
Yeah, I mean, Darius Miller is the one that I have the least amount of interest in just because we kind of know what he is. Like, he's a sharpshooter that even if he gets a lot of minutes, it's tough for him to really get to his ceiling because that's what he does. Frank Jackson is a guy that I'm always interested in just because he's a volume shooter and he's going to chuck the ball. And if he's going to play, 22-ish minutes, then I think he has a really, really high ceiling at his price tag. Cheick Diallo hasn't been playing well throughout the preseason, but he does have a track record of producing when he gets playing time. And I don't really see a way that he doesn't get heavy minutes tonight. So I love both of those guys. Ian Clark at a cheap price tag, I think is fine, but I would rank him behind Diallo and Jackson.
Okay, we'll move on then. Miami, they just announced that they're resting Wade, Dragic, Whiteside, Ellington, Magruder, and Winslow. James Johnson was already out. I think Derek Jones Jr. Is going to be back. It made it sound like after his somewhat scary fall, but he's only going to play a dozen minutes or something. I have not had time to revise my projection here. I'm looking at my projections in the roster, and I'm trying to see who this makes me like. So they are sitting... They're not sitting Olynyk. So I think I have to consider Kelly Olynyk at the pace of this game with no one else there who can score offensively. Is the first name that comes to mind. Talk to me about Miami. What am I missing? Where are we? Is it a Tyler Johnson day? Is it Rodney McGruder again?
Magruder's out.
You're right, Magruder's out. Sorry, it's not Magruder.
Richardson's in, though, right?
Richardson's in. There, thanks. That's what I was going for. I got that whole Ellington, Magruder, Richardson, Johnson quaternary. Yeah. Right, so Jay Rich, although you have to imagine, again, Jay Rich just coming back from injury, how many minutes are they really going to throw at Jay Rich? So, like, I think, and when I projected this game before the news that Wade and Whiteside and Ellington and Magruder and Winslow were out, it was already a minutes cluster because I thought it was going to go crazy. My original projections were Whiteside 20, Olynyk 22, Magruder 22, Winslow 23, Johnson 20, Richardson 22. You know who's really interesting? Bam Adebayo.
Yep.
I have I'm on Adebayo, Olynyk. Tyler Johnson would be the third guy I would play from this team because I think at the combo guard he has to play like 28 minutes now. Unless you think Josh Richardson ran, let me get to pile of time. But checking prices real quick on Adebayo and Olynyk. Olynyk's 5,400 on DK. That's pretty exciting. Adebayo is 47 on FanDuel. Adebayo is 41 at the center position, and Olynyk is 51 at the center position. So it's difficult to get them in, is really what I'm looking at. I like those guys, but it's hard compared to, Marc Gasol on DK or Valanciunas, who's only $6,000 on FanDuel. But some lingering interest in those guys for me. Any guys? What do you think about the Heat here?
Yeah, I mean, I like Adebayo. Obviously, he's another guy that does a really good job producing when he gets minutes, and it's not like he's playing against a particularly good rebounding Pelicans front court with Anthony Davis out. So I think that he's a good play. I still have interest in Josh Richardson in tournaments because I agree with you that the minutes are certainly in question here, but he's just such a productive player when he handles the ball, and with no Goran Dragic, with no basically anyone that is normally going to be on this offense, I think that he will have the ball in his hands. I think he will be close to a point per minute guy, and he's only 4,700 with multi-position eligibility on DraftKings. So, and on FanDuel, he comes with the defensive stat upside where it's weighted heavier. So, I think that there's risk, but I also think that he's a guy who, if Spoelstra were to give him more minutes than we are expecting, he's a guy that can just win you a tournament, I think.
All right, sounds good. Let's keep on keeping on. Can you put the mic closer? You can barely hear me. All right, I'm just going to try to speak up at this point because we don't have time for me to adjust my audio settings, but I will basically yell into the microphone, which feels awkward. I don't know if you ever saw the Will Ferrell character on Saturday Night Live who was like, Tina, I have voice demodulation syndrome. I can't control the Anyway, we'll be doing some of that, which will be fun. All right, we're done talking about Miami. Let's talk about San Antonio and Atlanta. Lowest over-under of the day. San Antonio closes at Orlando on Friday. Derek White will start at point guard. I have no interest. He's a career, not very good fantasy player who's going to be out there next to LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan. And the matchup with Atlanta is really nice, but I just think I would almost rather pivot and go other places. You'd have to convince me, Pop's going to give him 32 minutes because he really wants to take a great look at him. What do you think about Derek White?
I think so. I haven't looked at FanDuel pricing, but I think someone said that he's 3,500 over there.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, so I mean that obviously makes him more appealing. But again, you have probably everyone being 3,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, you can have Czech Diallo. You can have Wayne Selden at 36. You can have Frank Jackson at 35. You can have Ian Clark at 36. You can, there's just some other guys I think play similar minutes in faster games who are all lower owned is really what it comes down to for me. I don't mind Derek White. I projected him for 27 minutes and 21, 22 fantasy points. I think he's just fine in his raw projection, but it's just tons of value guys, who I think are lower owned.
Yeah, I agree with that. And on DraftKings, he's up around 5K. So I don't have interest there in
Spurs
Aldridge.
news: White, DeRozan, Gay, Dante Cunningham, and Pau Gasol starting for the Spurs. It appears Aldridge might be getting the night off.
Awesome.
Okay, so DeRozan against Atlanta with no one else who can make a basket. Well, I guess Rudy Gay and Pau Gasol can make baskets,
Yeah.
but Dante Cunningham and Derek White are not guys I expect to really run up the shot count. So yeah, fair amount of interest now in DeMar DeRozan for me. Nice job, by the way. That news broke extremely well timed. That was very nice. That news came out.
That was perfect timing on that.
That's the kind of timing my wife says I've never achieved. So I think we're DeMar DeRozan, guard and forward eligible on DK, 6,900. I also enjoy the fact that you can play either him at guard and Kawhi Leonard at the small forward, or Kawhi Leonard at the 2 and DeMar DeRozan at the 3, and you can swap Kawhi Leonard for DeMar DeRozan. That's me trying to be clever. Okay. So yeah, going back to that tweet again. Cunningham, no, not going to do that. Gasol, I don't care if he's starting. He's going to play 16 minutes, and Poeltl is going to play 16 minutes. And it's a good matchup for Gasol. Like, Gasol last game played, I don't even know what, but people, I was looking at the showdown slate, and people with him as like the captain were winning for a while because he went out in the first quarter and just went insane, which he absolutely can do. But White is a little more appealing to me now. One of my criticisms with White would be, like, I had a few. One would be he's going to be popular. Two would be there are, with DeRozan and Aldridge, in theory, two guys on that team who can really easily create their own shot. And three, it's a motion offense anyway, where it's not really like the point guard initiates everything. That isn't really the way that team works. So for all those reasons, I was a little suspect. Now, especially FanDuel, 3,500, he's probably your best min-price point guard. I will check that out when I get a second. But for reference, I said before I would have no interest. At this point, I have to have some interest. He's going to take 2 or 3 more shots than I expected, and probably even play maybe a couple more minutes than I expected. Yes, I liked Ian Clark quite a bit, someone just asked. He's going to start, and he'll also play with the second unit, and I think I slightly prefer Frank Jackson, but I like both those guys for that team. Anything else you want to say on the Spurs?
No, Gay and DeRozan mostly for me.
Yeah, Gay as well. I didn't specifically shout him out enough, so absolutely Rudy. With Aldridge out of there, looked really good last game, and he's generally been better at the beginning of the year. He does have an injury history, wears down a bit. Is one of those guys like Gallinari plays very similar to him. As you start the year, and every year you're like, oh, I forgot that guy's really good, and then just sort of goes off a cliff after that. They are in Atlanta, 4th of 5 preseason games for them. They finish Friday versus Miami, which is where Miami will be running out their starters. They are starting Trae Young, Kent Bazemore, Taurean Prince, Alex Len, and Vince Carter at 2 months younger than me getting his NBA start. Definitely some interest in these guys. Again, the pace isn't great. I do think Trae Young has like a 45, 50-point game in him we haven't quite seen in the preseason. He's going to threaten or get double-digit assists just about every game. He moves the ball extremely well. Not having John Collins there increases his role in the offense a little bit. So I have interest in Trae Young. I have interest in Taurean Prince, who's really starting to show some game and take over this first unit. And even I don't have some interest in Amari Spellman off the bench. He started last game and played like 28 minutes, but he looked really good. Coming off the bench here, maybe some additional usage. I can see that. Talk to me about the Hawks.
Yeah, I mean, those are the guys that I would agree on. Like, Trae Young obviously has monster upside. He's not someone that you're going to project to be a top play, just because he's expensive enough where he's not a top point per dollar option, but he certainly has the ceiling. If his shot's falling, the assists will be there, like you said. So he's someone where, if you are building tournament lineups and you want to like increase, like in Fantasy Cruncher, if you use the randomness option and you vary it by player, he's someone that you should probably have it higher, just because he does have probably more ceiling than a lot of the guys priced around him if you wanted to make sure you get some of him in lineups. So I agree with you there. Taurean Prince is kind of the same way. He gets there in a different way, but we saw last year that his average projection is normally not that great, but he's very capable of just going out there, racking up defensive stats, racking up buckets, and putting together good games for tournaments. So neither of them are cash plays for me. Neither are guys that I project as the best plays at their position, but there's no questioning their upside.
Sounds good. Let's continue on for the moment. Try to keep the pace going. Let's talk about Indiana and Chicago. I like Indiana. TJ Leaf is questionable. I don't think they play him, but Thad is back, and he's TJ Leaf, so I wouldn't play him. Edmund Sumner will play. Corey Joseph is out. Nate came out before the game before last and said we're gonna play, these two games as their pre-rehearsal. This is the last game of the year for Indiana, of the preseason for Indiana, but they get a full week off. So I do think they come at it pretty hard. There is a chance they blow Chicago out of the water, who saying Chicago and blow in the same sentence feels very natural to me at this point. They've been defensively pretty goddamn porous, but it is hard for me not to like, in some aspect, everybody on Indiana. Talk to me about the Indiana plays that are your favorited.
Absolutely love Oladipo. I mean, Chicago has just played zero defense. We know Oladipo is going to get basically all the usage on this Indiana team, and it's just a spot where I think it's really difficult for him to let us down. And he obviously just comes with monster upside whenever he plays. So I absolutely love him. If you wanted to take tournament flyers on some of the other guys, it obviously is a good spot against Chicago. But Oladipo is the one that just really stands out to me.
He does. He's and again, the price on DK. What's interesting is that, and we don't have time to get into this in depth now, though, but they have sort of truncated the pricing curve on DK. Like FanDuel still does everybody like 5, medium price guys are 6 or 7, and the curve gets up to the LeBrons and Anthony Davises and Durant's at 10.5, 11, 12. The most expensive guy on DK is Kevin Durant at 85. Anthony Davis is out, but he was 84. Steph Curry is 81. DeAndre Ayton is 78. John Wall is 74. It's supposed to FanDuel is 10K. So there's this really weird, feels like, they just sort of stomped on the top of the cap. Like they just took an algorithm thing and said, run it full up to 7,000 and then only 50 cents on every dollar or something. It's really curious how that's,
it's like the pricing should have been for the beginning of preseason where, the stars aren't going to play a ton of minutes. But now I almost think that you could maybe see people run into a trap with the DK pricing the way it is, because I think that as, the guys like Steph Curry, for example, see closer to full allotments of minutes, the guys that have been making you money through the first half of the preseason aren't going to be as good of a play, because now they're competing with, point per minute monsters like Curry.
Right. No, exactly. And Curry, by the way, I love tonight. I think they get pretty full doses of minutes, and so I'm pretty excited about that. Okay, so yeah, specifically, Miles Turner, again, center is kind of weak. I don't mind Miles Turner in some tournaments. Domantas Sabonis, I don't mind Domantas Sabonis in tournaments. I don't think I'm Bojaning, but Darren Collison without Corey Joseph, I'd have to check his price specifically, but if he was still in the 4s or low 5s, that's someone I would definitely have some interest in. So with the starters getting more time, I don't think anyone off the bench, excepting Sabonis, is terribly appealing for me. Let's go ahead and swing it over to Chicago unless you have anything else. 4th of their 5 preseason games. They play the Nuggets on Friday. Denzel Valentine is still going to be out. I think my favorite play in this game, if I had to play someone, would probably be Jabari Parker. He's a power forward. He has to shoot 50% from the field eventually, right? Like, I'm not asking a lot. I'm not saying make 9 of your 13 shots. How about 6 of your 13 shots? Because he's gonna get a double-double if he can ever shoot 40% from the field, and he's doing some other stuff. And the pace on this game is really nice. It's 220, and I have no reason to think that Hoiberg is going to mess with their minutes at all. So talk to me about the Bulls. Where do you come down?
I have nothing from the Bulls that I'm prioritizing. Just everyone's kind of priced awkwardly to where they're not really showing up in my lineups too much. Lopez and Parker both coming off the bench tonight.
Well, there you go. Look, I got to say this. The news is coming in right as we hit every game, which is almost impressive. I don't know if maybe I've got several general managers and PR departments watching the show and like, oh, he's talking about us now? Send. That might be what's going on here. Probably not, but probably not. Jabari to the bench. Portis and, like, I don't know, can I touch on Briante? I don't know if Mrs. Weber would appreciate that, but I mentioned Briante Weber once this preseason in the same context, and he went off in his 20 minutes. This is a much larger slate, and Briante Weber is not traditionally a very good fantasy basketball player. So, whereas on that slate, I said I think he gets 20, 22 minutes, and he could really get there, and he did, and he put up 30 or something. You'd have to be pretty deep tonight for me to play Briante Weber. Do you have a take on that, Adam?
I mean, I think the minutes should be there. Like, they're not playing anyone else. Yeah. He's gonna have the ball in his hands.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
But
I do think he gets 26 minutes. If you ask me to give a Briante Weber projection right now, maybe 24. That's still a little dicey for me when I expect, Selden will get that many minutes. I think he scores more. Frank Jackson will get that many minutes. I think he scores more. Ian Clark will get more minutes than that, and they're all basically the nut minimum. So, not out of play. Like, if I saw a lineup with Deontay Weber, I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. And he hit an upside just, 5 days ago or what have you. So, not horrific. All right, we'll move off Chicago with your strong take of play nobody. Phoenix at Portland. I have infinite interest in this game. Over-under of 227. Not to be confused with the excellent NBC sitcom starring Jack Hay in the 1990s. I went there. Darrell Arthur is out. Not that he was ever in. Devin Booker's still out. McCall Bridges has, I think it is, an elbow sprain. Are you interested in anyone on Phoenix not named Josh Jackson or DeAndre Ayton?
Nope.
All right, but we're interested in those guys because they just play infinite minutes. This game is going to be fast. Blazers are sitting a lot of people, which might even make this game competitive. I think it does. I like both those guys. I like Josh Jackson the same reason I like Jabari Parker. Whereas they've been shit. They are NBA basketball players, and at some point the ball will go in the hole. Proceed with Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, they both play a lot of minutes. They're both really good. I did want to point out, I do have a pretty good amount of Bobby Portis. I just looked through my projections and missed him.
Okay, I should have gone back there and talked about it. I imagine he is now starting, as they just said Parker to the bench, who was starting at the 4, even though they signed him to play the 3 because of the injury to Lauri Markkanen. So I imagine Portis is now starting, which, again, it's a bit of a price play. Portis is 6,400, but has obviously been really, really consistent, as you were about to say.
Yeah. I mean, and he's always been a guy that produces when he gets the minutes. He's not a great real-life basketball player, but he's excellent for fantasy purposes. So, I do like the spot for him, and I think he's still, very reasonably priced, and he's multi-position eligible on DraftKings as well.
Pretty interesting. Okay. Go ahead and Phoenix. Anything to add in discussing, Ayton? And Ayton's just been good every single game he's played. No reason to think he's going to stop here with, Nurkic playing limited time, we expect. I've been pinged again. There must be news. Today's starter for Hoiberg: Dunn, Levine, Holiday, Portis, and Wendell Carter Jr. Bud getting the start. Let's talk about Bud Carter. What's the price on Wendell?
I think he's 40-something.
51 on DK, center only. 53 on
that makes it really
FanDuel,
tough.
Power forward. I have some interest. I think it's just tournaments. He's shown a concerningly low lack of offense, and that was previously had a lot to do with starting next to Portis or playing next to Portis. He's now still playing next to Portis. Right. Certainly Portis still in play to me. Parker, maybe even more in play. He's really going to get his shots now, right? I don't know them. It's just tournaments, but it's a guy who can put up 40 fantasy points, and that, I expect the ownership to be precipitously low. So, okay, so Phoenix, we're basically in agreement. We're just talking about those two guys. They got 4 point guards. 3 or 4 of them will play. They'll average 16 minutes. You might get the 34-minute game out of Isaiah Cannon again, but I wouldn't count on it. Real interest here is in Portland. 4th of their 5th preseason games. Closing Friday at Sacramento, I think. Mo Harkless is probable, but Evan Turner, Gary Trent Jr., Damian Lillard, and CJ McCollum are out. I presume Nurk and Aminu will start and play limited minutes a la Elfrid Payton, Mirotic, Randall. I think it's a very similar situation. I don't think that they're going to rest, 2 or 3 starters and play the other ones 31 minutes. Though it's, I think, more possible in this situation because they are not on a back-to-back. They play Friday. So I don't think playing Nurk or Aminu is as bad, and the ownership will be much lower than the Pels because they're not a team we target. But matchup with Phoenix is glorious, and I think the really interesting spot to look at here is more of these really nice value guards who we can take a look at here. Talk to me about Portland. Uh-oh. We've lost Adam. Trying to reconnect. Come back. Uh-oh. Well. Olynyk minutes. You'd have to give me a minute. I'd have to reproject the entire rotation. I originally had it as pretty shit, but now you have to think it's going to get to be reasonably impressive. Like, someone on that team has to do well in that matchup with New Orleans. Not sure what happened. Just said I lost the connection. So if you can hear me, Adam, I'll just type in the chat, or why not here? Sorry, I'm attempting to reestablish the show. Can somebody confirm you can still see me? Jarrell Martin thoughts? Yeah, I projected him for well more minutes, and again, with some of the guys being sat on that team, it's interesting. I'm just going to continue onward because we don't have time to spend a Bam versus JaVale now that Whiteside is out. Same price on FanDuel. I think JaVale is a safer cash play. You know, Adebayo was dealing with an injury. That's certainly something we can think about there. So I would play JaVale and cash between those two guys. And wait, he's back. We're connecting. I assume you guys are seeing the same thing I am over here, the swirly. Come on, Adam. Stay away from the light. I will hold on the centers and the questions, rather, please, for a second. How you doing, Adam?
How's it going?
All right. So we're talking about Portland. I was pointing out that my real interest is in the guards, some of the value guards you're going to get here. They're sitting several guards. There are only so many on the team. So I think we're looking at minutes into the 20s and conceivably the high 20s for Seth Curry, Nick Stauskas, Wade Baldwin IV, Anthony Simons. I'm not going to play Gary Payton II, but he will be in the game and he will get some minutes, but it's probably about a dozen. Talk to me about the value Portland guards. Who do you like most? Is it Curry? Is it Stauskas? Is it Baldwin? Where are you at there?
Curry's my favorite just because he's someone that we've seen in the past that when he gets usage and gets minutes, he actually can score and be productive. So he's my favorite out of the group. He's still really, really cheap on DraftKings. I don't have the pricing in front of me at the moment, but I think he's like 4,200. I'm pretty sure I had him as my highest. 44, yeah. So I had him as like my highest point per dollar guard. So I like him a lot. And then behind him, you know, Wade Baldwin, he's not consistent, but we have seen him, you know, when he played we've seen him in the past, you know, at least show some upside. He's cheap enough that in a good matchup here against Phoenix that I have interest in him as well. So I would put him behind Curry, but he's my second favorite there. Stauskas, I just have trouble playing him kind of regardless of matchup or minutes or anything else, just because I don't think he's that good.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's exactly the order I'd have them in. I'd have Curry on top as well. But yeah, Curry, Baldwin definitely have some interest in me. Again, I think the bigs minutes don't really get affected that much. I think you will get some extra time out of Zach Collins and Caleb and some of the other guys down there, but much less to count on. But I do think those guys are playing tournaments. If I'm making 150 lineups, I have some Zach Collins in my life. I have some Caleb Swanigan in my life. Talk to me about anyone else on this team beyond the bigs.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Jake Layman's someone too that could get hot and knock out some shots. But you do have Mo Harkless back, so maybe not as secure wing minutes as the guard minutes, obviously. But yeah, I mean, outside of the guys who I'm using in my core, specifically Seth Curry, Collins and Swanigan both, they're capable of being, high fantasy point per minute producers. So it's just a matter of if they're going to get the minutes, which is obviously, a big question mark. But those are the kind of guys that I don't mind mixing in, small percentages of in tournaments, just because if for some reason they get 26 minutes instead of 22 minutes, that's a guy that can put up, a point per minute.
All right, sounds good. Let's get to the last game, and then we'll have about 20 minutes for questions, and you can start firing them up. Their last game is Golden State at the Lakers. They play tonight. They play again on Friday. Over-under in this game, highest of the night, 233. Draymond is still out. Sean Livingston is questionable, which is largely irrelevant. Steve Kerr came out and said these two games will be more dress rehearsal-ish and be more of a game day routine. With this over-under, with the continued absence of Draymond, I have the Golden State studs playing 29 minutes or so is where I think they average out, which would be representative of what Kerr has done the last couple years in the second to last game. So I like Steph Curry quite a bit. I like Kevin Durant quite a bit. They're some of my highest priced players on this slate. I'll let you start. Talk to me about the studs and then where to maybe go with some of the value on this team if you're interested in Looney or Damian Jones is coming off a hot game or of course, Jordan Bell.
Yeah, I'm not really looking to go to the value here just because I think there are enough bodies that it's going to be really, really tough to predict what they're going to do since they are trying to treat it more like a dress rehearsal. But going to guys like Curry and Durant, especially on DraftKings, where they, as we talked about earlier, where they're really cheap, and they're basically priced for the minutes that you would expect them to play in their first or second preseason game. It's just so easy to get these guys in. They give you so much upside. It's obviously a good matchup as well. So yeah, I mean, I absolutely love Durant, absolutely love Curry. Those are, it's two of my favorite plays on the slate.
Okay. Okay, we're in agreement there. And then swinging around talking about the Lakers last, 5th of 6 games. Josh Hart is questionable with a hammy. I'd be really surprised if he plays. There's just no reason for them to do that if he's not 1,000%. So it seems odd on a team this deep. But he's just questionable. I guess there's a chance. Lonzo will play off the bench. Luke Walton has narrowed it down to 10 to 30 minutes. Lonzo himself took the exact mean average of those two and said 20. Walton said to expect some additional minutes for the starters and several rotation players on Wednesday, this being their second to last preseason game. There is nothing firm, but a lot of speculation around that LeBron's time will come up somewhat. I think the minutes do centralize on the starters a little bit, probably accepting LeBron and Rondo, who I think loses some time to a returning Lonzo Ball. What do you think about this Laker team? Again, it feels like I should have more interest than I do in a game with the sort of massive over-under, but obviously LeBron's price makes him a little bit prohibitive, though much more reasonable on DK, and whereas I think he gets 20 minutes, maybe he gets 24, and that's a bit of an ass-kicking. Talk to me about the Lakers.
Yeah, I'm with you as far as just not really ending up with as much of these guys as it kind of feels like I should. But at the same time, it makes sense. Like, I like LeBron. I do have a pretty decent amount of LeBron because, like you said, if he plays 20 minutes, I think you can still project him for north of 30 points. And if he were to play 25 minutes, he becomes, especially on DraftKings at his price tag there, one of the best plays on the slate. So I like LeBron. The issue with the rest of the guys is that we still just haven't really seen how they're going to gel and how they're going to fit and where production is going to come from. And it's not like they're particularly cheap. It's not like we're on, a short slate that is lacking in plays anywhere. So it's pretty easy to see, most of those guys doing good, but not good enough to win you a tournament, with the exception of LeBron. And, if you wanted to throw in some JaVale McGee at 4,700, I guess.
Yeah, no, certainly JaVale McGee makes a lot of sense. I do think you get 24, 25 minutes out of JaVale McGee in a game that's really, really going to move. Not the greatest matchup for him, but certainly something you can look at. So what I want to do is talk about value real quick on both the sites. I'm going to let you start on DK, and I think the best way to do this is just sort of filter down to the bottom. People want exact ranking. That's difficult because, A, there's a lot of really good value, so trying to figure out all 13 of them and then put them in the correct order, you're asking for, I don't know if Adam thinks he can do it in a minute. I can't. I would be making stuff up. So
I mean, I can literally just run down my Fantasy Cruncher value place.
I love it. Do it. See, that's why you're here. You're a stud.
Yeah, so I mean, Seth Curry, Frank Jackson, Adebayo, Josh Richardson, but again, we talked about his minute
value there. Is he like
he's 4,700?
Oh, see you didn't mention that in the course of our previous conversation. Yeah. That gives me plenty of interest. That's 700 over the cap. Like that is a far different. I figured he was still in the 5s or the 6s. Yeah, I'd have some interest at that number.
Yeah. So Josh Richardson, Wade Baldwin, Chuck Diallo, JaVale McGee. Those are the guys that I have above 5 points per dollar. Then you get into like Briante Weber, Jordan Bell, Tyler Johnson, the Toronto guys, Van Vliet and Wright. I'm not sure if we've seen news on Van Vliet, but
what's the deal with Van Vliet? I had no reason to think there was anything weird with Van Vliet, and sort of designation somewhere. Like, I literally have zero news on Fred Van Vliet. I thought he was 100% and 100% playing. You're the second person to mention him to me.
No, I saw the same thing you saw, and it was just people in chat.
Oh, okay. If anyone has any official news for any reason to actually believe that Fred Van Vliet is going to be out, please hit me up with that. So let me scroll down and look at some things here. Who's the sneaky play of the day? We've mentioned several. I think Bam Adebayo is a very high upside guy who is sneaky. There's some risk there. I think the guards on Memphis. I think the guards on Portland will be well less owned than they should be. Frank Jackson and Ian Clark will be. I mean, Frank Jackson could play 25 minutes, score 37 fantasy points, and is going to be 3.5% owned or something. More people will play Ian Clark than that. Are there any good cheap small forward plays? I will look on FanDuel real quick, although I will say that my gazes at this make me want to pay up. I want to pay for Durant or Kawhi or tournament Jabari Parker or Rudy Gay in that mid-price range, or Josh Richardson here is 6,300, for example. Torian Prince at 6,000. Josh Jackson is 5,900. The guy will eventually make a shot, I think. When are there no cheap small forward plays? I have a feeling there's a couple here. I like looking at minimum price on FanDuel. I am still looking at minimum price on FanDuel.
So I have my DraftKings stuff in front of me, and if I sort by value, which should bring the cheap guys to the top, I have Josh Richardson, but then it's DeRozan, LeBron, Leonard, Durant, Jackson, like Tyreek Evans, Fournier, Gay. So I'm not. Okay. I don't have any.
On FanDuel. Solomon Hill is the minimum. If I need to play the minimum, I'm going to play Solomon Hill. I'm not excited about playing Solomon Hill. He is not a good fantasy basketball player. If I can spend a little bit more, Dylan Brooks is 4,000. That's pretty exciting. Bojan Bogdanovic is 4,300. I don't like Bojan Bogdanovic, but 4,300, he's going to play 27 minutes, give or take 2. I have some interest there in a really good matchup, so he could make 7 threes tonight. Reggie Bullock would stay in play for me, although with Stanley back, that's less exciting. OG Anunoby is 47. And then after that, you're into expensive guys. At that point, I'm playing Kelly Oubre at 5,000, I think. So that's the FanDuel small forwards. Going back for more questions, always starting in the premium. Favorite centers on DraftKings? I think Adam and I are in agreement that Marc Gasol presents a very nice combination of floor plus upside. So off the top of my head, when I think center on DK, in tournaments, Adebayo would be one of my favorites. Drummond with the truncated cap on DK is pretty exciting to me. Ayton, certainly in cash, I would probably rather save $1,900 to spend elsewhere than play DeAndre Ayton, but he's just rolling out 40-45 every time. It's hard not to really like that. Anyone else you want to add about at center on the Kings of the Draft, Adam?
Bam Adebayo is a center, and I think obviously a good value play. But yeah, those are the guys for me. Vucevic, Olynyk, Portis, like they're all secondary options that I have, but Gasol and Drummond are my 2 favorites.
Okay, good. I'm right next to you there. Moving on for another question. Any interest in Yante Maton with the Heat starters out? No. TJ Leaf is out. Oh, pity. We'll give McMillan a chance to play Sabonis and O'Quinn together. He's just sore from all the playing time. I'm not even going to go there. TJ Leaf is becoming a thing for me. Do a quick position rundown with Adam. You got to tell me what you mean by a quick position rundown. Just like look at each position and say who we like. It's tough because Adam is mostly acquainted with the DraftKings as far as the pricing goes this evening, and with all the hybrid pricing, it makes it really weird. But sure, let's look at DraftKings. That's fine. We'll do it this way. Let's look at DraftKings and sort by just point guard for now. So you'll get everyone who is eligible there. And I'll let you take first swing at this. Top down it and just give me or sort your projections by your highest ownership for guys who are point guard owned.
All right. So yeah, I mean, I'm running my crunches right now, but it looks like at the moment my highest owned point guards are both of the Currys, Oladipo, Jackson, Baldwin, and then everyone else is below 20%.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, on DraftKings, I would have more Kyle Lowry than that. I do think
I have 15% Lowry.
Yeah, okay. He is going to get a decent chunk of time, and he's playing Brooklyn, and there's a lot of nice stuff about it at home, and I think they run him. He has led this team in preseason minutes 2 consecutive years. I think that comes up. I don't know if you mentioned Trae Young. I'd have a bit of that. I don't know if you mentioned John Wall. I'd have a bit of that.
Yeah, I think I have like 15% Wall. I didn't force in any Trae Young, and that'll probably bite me in the ass.
Yeah, it's I like in tournaments. You're saving $100 and playing Lowry, which I think is safer floor, similar upside. So again, if you're building I'm only making a lineup I'm staring at. So right. I have Lowry in it and not Trae Young. Someone said Frank or Ian Clark in cash. I would play Ian Clark in cash over Frank. Ian Clark is safer to get more minutes. Frank Jackson might play 17 minutes. That wouldn't shock me. I don't think that happens. I think he gets into the 20s, and Frank has more of an upside and is going to be lower owned. But cash, I would play Ian Clark. Tournaments, I would play Frank. I think Adam comes down the same way on that. Yep. LeBron or DeMar DeRozan in a GPP? At this point, I'm definitely playing DeMar.
Yeah, I have more DeMar.
Yep. Let me look over at some of the YouTube chat and get some questions in there. Best 4K punt on DK for utility? That's a good question. Minimum price, Adam, what do you got?
At exactly 4K.
Exactly $4,000. I am looking at it, but you can probably pretty quickly tell me who's highest in your crunch. Again, Frank Jackson. Tournaments is probably going to be most of the guy I want. I'm sorting through the rest of it to see if there's anyone that I put even close to on that tier.
I don't have any 4K flat guy on my first page of point per dollar projections,
Got
except
it.
for Jack.
I'm gonna scroll through all of it because I'm almost done with it now, and it's I'm curious if anyone else will jump out. Should be only a few more seconds. Jarrell Martin, I like in tournaments a lot. The coach mentioned this is his revenge game, and they are. I'm trying to remember who is.
Sitting Mo.
Right, no Mo Bamba. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. And without Mo Bamba, I think Jarrell Martin probably get. I have Jarrell Martin predicted and made me nervous at like 22 minutes and 25.5 fantasy points. So that may be an overreaction, but Jarrell Martin at 4K would have interest for me in tournaments. And geez,
I have him around 22 minutes. I don't have him around 22 fantasy points. I don't think.
That's fair enough. And then I'm into the 4100s to hit Wade Baldwin the fourth. So there you go.
Yep.
5.2 power forward on DK.
I'll pull it up in a second. I'm just trying to get my
time. He's out. I would probably play Pascal, then check Diallo. Probably check Diallo, then Pascal at this point if I think that goes the way I want it to, and then Trevor Ariza you can do. We obviously saw the ceiling recently. I kind of doubt you get it twice, but that's where I would land there. Diallo or Bam for a DK GPP. I'd play Bam.
I think I have like identical amounts of both, but I think I'm leaning Bam.
I do think they are close. The best small forward under 7,500 on FanDuel. In tournaments, I would play Jabari Parker. In cash, I would play Brandon Ingram. Top high point guard options on FanDuel. I like Steph more than I like John Wall, but they're both super expensive. Steph's 98 and John's 10 on the nose. And then after that, you come down to Lowry, Beal, Conley, but I think you just pay up at that point. So I would rather save $200 and play Steph. That being said, he might be higher owned. Back into the chat. Hopefully we're getting some news or something. Certainly some spam. Could I rank Otto, Rudy, J. Rich, Josh Jackson on FanDuel raw points? I will take Rudy, then Josh Jackson, then Otto Porter, then J. Rich raw points. Is Adam gone again?
I don't know. I was trying to think.
Okay.
So Jackson.
I have Josh Jackson. Of those four guys, I would do Josh Jackson, then Rudy Gay. That would be close between those two. Really close between those two. Then I'd have Otto, then J. Rich. Just raw points I think they score.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Can you play Baldwin and Seth in the same FanDuel lineup? Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, in fact, there's probably more positive than negative correlation there, believe it or not. Best cash game center on FanDuel. Kelly Olynyk or Jonas Valanciunas, believe it or not, just because the price is so much more advantageous. Like, Jonas Valanciunas is 6K, Drummond is 10, Gasol is 8, Vooch is 7.7, Nurk is 7.6, Whiteside is 6.9, who's resting now, never mind, Turner at 6.9, Sabonis at 5.6, you could make an argument, but probably JaVale McGee at 4,200. It's JaVale McGee at 4,200. I think for me,
yeah, that sounds right for me.
The best cash game center there. That's where I would come down on that one pretty easily. Still getting to as many questions as we can, giving the premium users in the Awesemo Premium Slack chat first take at it when we can. Tonight's starters: Richardson, Tyler Johnson, Derek Jones Jr., Kelly Olynyk, and bam, Adebayo. There we go. We were all over it. Lowry and LeBron or Durant and Kelly O on DK. Durant and Kelly O.
Yes.
Ayton or Aaron Gordon, FanDuel cash. I'll take Ayton. LeBron and DeMar or KD and Fournier. That's very close for me. I would probably play KD and Fournier in cash. I don't mind LeBron and DeMar in a tournament as a pivot. Would you play Durant?
Yeah, I would definitely go LeBron.
Okay.
I would go LeBron and DeMar in tournaments.
Yep. Would you play Durant and Curry in the same lineup? I have no issue doing it. Prince, Kelly O. That sounds like a children's short story. Gay Prince, Kelly O, or Fournier on DK. Gay in cash, Prince or Kelly O in tournaments. Favorite shooting guard punt on FanDuel? There's so many good ones. Within $100 of the minimum, you have Frank Jackson and Wayne Selden and Ian Clark, and I have a feeling I'm missing a fourth. Thankfully, Magruder is out, who, by the way, great job updating your prices, FanDuel. is still at 3,500. He's still at the minimum because, you know, why would you ever change the prices? Stauskas at 35 is in play. I mean, he's literally sitting on the floor there. Anthony Simmons at 35 is in play in a tournament. He's unrefined, but as all. Marshawn Brooks is still 35. Come on. So, yeah, minimum price on FanDuel. Wade Baldwin, the fourth, is 35. Antonio Blakeney is 35. He'd be in play for me at that price. Selden, Clark. Okay, and that's it. So, yeah, there's only 8 minimum price playable tournament shooting guards on FanDuel. Sort of salt to taste. Hopefully we've given you a more nuanced take at who we like and why, and then make your shot there. They are all going to project in the same way. No video indie at all. I don't know what that means. Any locks? It is a large enough slate. If I had to... My closest... Any locks is the question. No, I do not believe on either site there's anyone I would put in 100% of lineups. The player I probably would have the highest exposure to would be, I have a feeling, Durant or Seth Curry. You got a take on that?
Seth Curry's my highest owned player on DraftKings at 80%. And then I have, I think, Steph and maybe KD at 60.
Right. Okay. So we're right in the same ballpark there. I think if one of them plays more minutes, it ends up being Durant. You know, and Seth hasn't been that. You know, Steph is going to be rested a little more. But yeah, I'm right with you there. Or Olynyk or Bam in cash.
Bam.
I'll say Bam, but yeah, JaVale over Bam. I still do JaVale over Bam in cash because JaVale, I feel fairly certain will play 24, 25, 26 minutes. I am not shocked if Bam plays 18 minutes and they're running out the Yerbas and the other guys in that lineup. Bueller, I don't know what that means. Bam or Ibaka on DK? Bam, easily. Now you're worried all the projections are off. Yeah, I apologize. I'm working on an apparatus for the regular season that will let me on the fly correct quicker. But at the moment, yeah, it would take a minute to updo the projections, which isn't worth it. Can you rank small forwards on DK point per dollar? Please answer in chat. Okay, Adam, can you give me your favorite point per dollar DK? Your projections and mine have seemed pretty similar, so I think you can sort.
What position was it?
Small forward, DraftKings, point per dollar.
Yeah, give me a second.
One.
DeRozan, Richardson, Durant, Leonard, LeBron, Jackson, Gay.
Kawhi in, I have no reason to expect not. I think Kawhi plays a ton of minutes. Do you like Clark greater than Baldwin, greater than Jackson, greater than Selden, greater than Castillo, which is Stauskas, greater than Brooks? For cash, I would play either Selden or Ian Clark. I think I'm going to play Wayne Selden. But they're very similarly projected for me. I think Selden is a more productive player and has some guaranteed time and is getting the start. Ian Clark is a worse player as far as point per minutes go, but is going to have to play first and second unit on that team. And I think I would project for 3 more minutes, so 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Aldridge is out. That was expected, but I appreciate the confirmation. Moving on to quotes. Let's go back to the YouTube channel. This is bad. You love your preseason lineup. Yeah, that never goes well when you love your lineup. Any Tyreek thought? Absolutely viable in tournaments. Should have gotten a mention. Matchup is pristine against Chicago. Appears to be past the ankle issue. I haven't projected for 27 and 35 or something like that. Bam or Len, raw points on DK. Bam, easily. Len... tougher matchup in 16 or 18 minutes is what he's been getting. Is Wall okay on FanDuel? He's fine. I think he's less owned than Steph for $200 more. And again, we think he plays around 30 minutes. John Wall can do 50 in 30 minutes, so no issue with that whatsoever. Portis or DeRozan? I will take DeRozan. Curry brothers for the win. Yeah, that's the I'm looking at a hypothetical FanDuel lineup here, and I have Curry's for point guard, which is fun. Diallo or Selden utility on DK. That's close for me. I still think it'd be Selden if I had to pick one in cash, but Diallo in tournaments I think I would do.
Yeah, I don't think I have any Selden. I have Diallo though.
Yeah, I mean, FanDuel is 35 or 36, so that makes plenty of sense, and he's getting the start. But can I share my thoughts on Mirotic again? Yeah, I think their plan is to have a dress rehearsal at home tomorrow. And so I think they're going to want him to play 28 minutes tomorrow. So I don't think he plays more than 20 minutes today. And I put down 16 as my guess. So, you know, for me to be wrong, he's got to crush those minutes expectations. If I had to play one of the New Orleans three guys, if I had to play Alfred or Randall or Miro, I would play Mirotic because he has to play the fewest minutes tomorrow. Okay, he's going to play less than Alfred and Randall tomorrow. They're both going to play 30-32. Mirotic's going to play 26-27, I think. So if you made me play one of those three guys, I would play Mirotic. But the whole reason they're doing this and resting those other guys is so they can have a real regular season rehearsal at home tomorrow. So it'd be very strange for me if they played Mirotic 29 minutes tonight. That's my theory. Bam or Val in a FanDuel GPP. I like them both quite a bit. It's just which you have money available for, because Bam's 4 whatever and change, and Val is 6. But you know, and also how many other guys you have from those games, etc. But I like them both about equally. Do you have a take on that, Adam?
Didn't hear the question, but is Markieff Morris playing? I didn't see news.
I have not seen confirmation, which is odd because the game tips in 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's why I was scrambling.
I will check that out because you're a person too, and you deserve to have your news. So I'm just doing the simple Twitter search here. Okay, starting.
Okay, cool.
So
Thanks.
there you go. So yeah, your Kelly Oubre got a little bit worse if anyone was doing that. Is the 8 of 9 format on FanDuel live? It is not live yet. Josh Jackson, Seth Curry, or Fournier, DJ Augustine. I would play Josh Jackson, Seth Curry every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Clay or Kawhi? If you had no other Warriors, my answer would be Clay, but in any other situation, my answer would certainly be Kawhi. Is Russell an okay play? He's fine in tournaments. Thoughts on LeVert? Fine in tournaments, but we're concerned about the minutes coming down. These guys suck at answering questions. That's very friendly. Thank you. I appreciate you pointing that out. Is Aaron Gordon safe to play? Yes, he's very, very safe to play. He's safe at any speed. Cheap point guard on FanDuel, not named Seth Curry. Point. They're all good shooting guards. Briante Weber in tournaments is going to have to get some time. I wouldn't despise it in cash. So as of the moment, Weber.
White.
Derek White would be the other one. So Weber or White. Adam, your last call. We have run out of time. We're done. You don't get a last call. We done. Let us take a look at some ownership here, which... should be interesting. I'll look on DraftKings and see what we have. All right, here we go. The 100K pull-up jumper. Which I like the fact that they, you know, name their tournaments after sort of tepid basketball moves. It's like, it's a pull-up jumper. Yeah, like it's how you feel about a 100K tournament. It's like $100,000. All right, you know, it's like a Sean Livingston pull-up jumper. It's nice, not thrilling, but nice. I feel okay about that. So
It's all 15%, Mark.
Feeling good about that. So yeah, Kawhi Leonard 32, John Wall 30, Aaron Gordon 20, Kyle Lowry 17, Karis LeVert 16, Vooch 16, Marc Gasol 16, D'Angelo Russell 14.5, Andre Drummond 12. Feels pretty good at 12 there. Jared Allen at 10, Evan Fournier, please don't Google his last name, 10%, Bradley Beal 9, Valanciunas 6. Okay. Otto Porter 5, Blake Griffin 4, Marshawn Brooks 4, Serge Ibaka 4, Wayne Selden 4, Kenneth Faried 3, Stanley Johnson 3, Jarrett Jack 2.5. All right, someone's having fun in their life. Mike Conley 2.5, Kelly Oubre 2.5.
Fred VanVleet 0.1.
0.1 for Freddie. Yeah, apparently there's something apparently wrong with him that just you or I don't know.
He has a Q tag on DraftKings.
Yeah, that must be That must be it. All right. Anything else you'd like to talk about at the end of our little thing here?
No. Think I'm good.
No, we'll do it. So I will be back tomorrow, and Adam will be joining me again on Friday for the ultimate, the final, the last game of the preseason. And again, I'll try to do something over the weekend. Think I'm going to do something for football, and additionally see if I can get together some sort of basketball shindig. So with that, he is Adam Scher. I am Fast Eddie Fear, and we will see you soon.